The Nightly Business Report.
Good evening. Tonight, Colombo residential land prices surged by 14.4% in the first half of this year, driven by strong demand and urban growth. Sri Lanka adopts Commonwealth Meridian system to enhance public debt management and transparency. The ASPI posts modest gains as S&P SL20 records slight decline in daily market movement. And the S&P 500 hits a record high as investor optimism strengthens amid economic recovery.
From Studio 24C, here's Anuradhi Vikramasinghe.
Good evening and thank you for joining us. Residential land prices in Colombo district rose 14.4% in the first half of this year, driven by a recovering economy and low interest rates. Commercial and industrial land values also increased, reflecting a broader upward trend in Sri Lanka's land market.
Residential land prices in Colombo district increased by 14.4% in the first half of 2025 compared to the previous year, according to the central bank's land valuation index. Commercial land prices rose by 11.5%, while industrial land values increased by 8.4% during the same period. The overall land value index went up 11.4% year-on-year, with most of the increase occurring in the first half of 2025. Sri Lanka's economic recovery and low interest rates have contributed to the rise in land prices. Despite past currency collapses, land values have remained stable or increased, offering protection against monetary instability. However, depreciating currencies and wage pressures continue to make land ownership challenging for many wage earners.
The Cabinet of Ministers has approved a project for the Ceylon Electricity Board to establish an integrated electricity supply system at the Noracholai Lakvijay coal power plant. This system aims to support the plant's coolant and boiler catchment hydro supply during power outages. Currently, the lack of a dedicated backup supply causes the plant to halt operations for several days during island-wide blackouts, leading to significant financial losses. A government-appointed technical committee recommended the installation of a continuously operating backup system to keep critical functions running during national power cuts. The project will be funded by the CEB and is expected to be implemented quickly. This initiative will improve the plant's resilience, operational continuity and financial stability, safeguarding its contribution to the national grid. Sri Lanka will begin using the Commonwealth Meridian public debt management system next month as part of its economic recovery plan. The adoption follows recommendations from the IMF and World Bank to strengthen the country's public debt management office.
Sri Lanka will start using the Commonwealth Meridian public debt management software next month to enhance its economic recovery efforts. The decision follows recommendations from the IMF and World Bank to establish a dedicated public debt management office. A Commonwealth delegation recently visited Colombo to assist with staff training and data migration for the new system. The government selected Commonwealth Meridian in October 2024 for its cost effectiveness, compatibility, and comprehensive debt management features. Currently, 45 countries use the software to manage government debt portfolios totaling $4 trillion. The system aims to improve accuracy, transparency, and efficiency in managing Sri Lanka's public debt.
5 leading Sri Lankan plantation companies have signed landmark agreements with Solidaridad Network Asia and Nucleus Foundation to adopt the Region Agri Standard and implement a carbon insetting program. This partnership aims to enhance sustainability, soil health, biodiversity and carbon sequestration across their estates. Region Agri, the world's largest regenerative agriculture certification, supports producers in improving market competitiveness and meeting global sustainability regulations. The collaboration includes deploying advanced digital agri-tech tools for monitoring and ensuring traceability in tea production. Solidaridad and its partners will support these companies in accessing carbon markets and strengthening Sri Lanka's position in sustainable agriculture. Let's take a short break now. This is the Nightly Business Report. Welcome back to the Nightly Business Report. Sri Lanka's stock market saw mixed movements today, with the ASPI posting modest gains while the S&P SL20 recorded a slight dip. For further insights on this, we have Salama Sanon from First Capital Holdings.
Thank you, Anuradhi. The Colombo Stock Exchange witnessed a volatile day of trading. However, overall market sentiment remained positive, extending the upward streak from yesterday. The all-share price index registered a new all-time high and closed at 20,800, marking a gain of 47 points. Dialog Axiata, Ambion Holdings, Bukit Dara, Carson Cumberbatch and LOLC Holdings emerged as the main positive drivers of the index. Both retail and high net worth investors demonstrated reasonably high levels of activity, with a spotlight on small to medium cap companies such as EB Creasy, LVL Energy and Sierra Cables. Market turnover reached 7.5 billion, representing a 16% increase compared to the monthly average of 6.4 billion rupees. The capital goods sector led turnover contributions with a 23% share, while the diversified financials and materials sectors stood next in line with a collective contribution of 25%. Colombo City Holdings, Raigam Saltons and Cargo Boat Development Company emerged as the top gainers, whereas SMB Finance Voting, Gestetner of Ceylon and Muller and Phipps plc posted the largest price declines for the day. Thank you.
Colombo land values rose 11.4% year-on-year in the first half of 2025, led by strong growth in residential property prices. The overall land valuation indicator reached 256.4 points, continuing an upward trend in the real estate sector. For further insights, we have Shahana Kanagaratnam from First Capital Holdings.
Thank you, Anuradhi. The Central Bank of Sri Lanka released details pertaining to the land value for the first half of 2025 recently. So the land valuation indicator compiled for the Colombo district increased by 11.4% during the first half of 2025 compared to the same period of 2024. For the first half of 2025, the residential sub-indicator recorded an annual increase of 14.4%. The commercial sub-indicator recorded a growth of 11.5%, while the industrial sub-indicator rose by about 8.4%. Meanwhile, land value indicators and its sub-indicators increased at a higher pace on a semi-annual basis as well during first half of 2025 compared to the values recorded in second half of 2024. In this regard also, the residential land value indicators recorded the highest increase, followed by commercial land value indicators. Thank you.
Gold prices steadied near a two-week high in Asian trade today, remaining largely underpinned by bets on a September interest rate cut by the Federal Reserve amid an ongoing feud between President Donald Trump and the central bank. Spot gold fell 0.2% to $3,389.96 an ounce, while gold futures for October rose 0.4% to $3,445.32 an ounce. Gold's gains this week came amid increasing concerns over the Fed's independence following Trump's move to fire Cook. Spot platinum steadied at $1,349.08 an ounce, while spot silver rose 0.3% to $38.69 an ounce. Among industrial metals, benchmark copper futures on the London Metal Exchange rose 0.3% to $9,789.60 a ton, while COMEX copper futures fell 0.2% to $449.15 a pound. Oil prices fell in Asian trading today after U.S. data showed a slightly sharper than expected drop in crude inventories, while investors weighed the impact of additional U.S. tariffs against India, which came into effect a day earlier. Brent oil futures expiring in October fell 0.5% to $67.71 per barrel, while West Texas Intermediate crude futures declined 0.6% to $63.80 per barrel. U.S. crude oil inventories fell 2.4 million barrels in the week. Indian refiners briefly paused Russian oil purchases after secondary tariffs were imposed, but have since resumed buying, with the measures proving insufficient to curb flows. Analysts believe the market will be cautiously watching Russian oil flows to India closely going forward to gauge the impact. The Sri Lankan rupee has depreciated slightly against the US dollar at commercial banks in Sri Lanka today compared to yesterday. Against the Indian rupee, the buying rate improved, suggesting a modest appreciation of the LKR. Conversely, the LKR weakened against the Pakistani rupee, reflecting a depreciation of approximately 5.5%. Against the Bangladeshi taka, the LKR showed a marginal improvement, indicating a slight appreciation. Let's take a closer look now on how the Sri Lankan rupee has performed among other major global currencies. short break now. This is the Nightly Business Report. Welcome back to the Nightly Business Report. The Cabinet of Ministers has approved a 639.5 million rupee contract to CIC Holdings PLC for the supply of 20,000 nanocrystal silver dressings used in wound treatment. The contract follows an international competitive bidding process with CIC as the sole responsive bidder.
The Cabinet of Ministers has approved a procurement contract awarded to CIC Holdings Private Limited companies for the supply of 20,000 nanocrystal silver resins. Each resin measures 20 cm by 40 cm and is used in wound treatment and management. The contract is valued at Rs 639.5 million, excluding value-added tax. The award followed an international competitive bidding process in which CIC Holdings Private Limited companies was the sole substantially responsive bidder. CIC Holdings is representing Smith & Nephew Medical Limited of the United Kingdom. Nanocrystal silver resins are known for their antimicrobial properties and are widely used in clinical wound care.
Douglas & Sons Private Limited recently celebrated their 30-year partnership at an event attended by their senior leadership from both companies. UASA, a globally recognized battery brand and OEM supplier to major automotive companies like Toyota, Honda, continues to set high standards in performance and durability. The event highlighted the strong relationship and shared commitment to supporting Sri Lanka's growing automotive industry. Senior representatives from UASA Asia expressed confidence in the local market and emphasized the importance of trusted partnerships like this one. Douglas & Sons and its dealer network have been key in building UASA's reputation as a premium and reliable battery brand in Sri Lanka. DFCC Bank and Ocean Peak have joined forces in a shared commitment to foster a greener, more resilient Sri Lanka through sustainable finance and responsible aquaculture.
DFCC Bank and Ocean Peak have formed a partnership focused on building a greener, more resilient Sri Lanka. DFCC Bank aims to become the bank for green finance by 2030, supporting projects like mangrove restoration and reforestation. Ocean Peak operates South Asia's first commercial offshore barramundi farm, promoting sustainable and socially empowering aquaculture. The partnership was formalized during their first official meeting on August 25th. Together, they plan to protect marine ecosystems, create jobs, and support coastal communities vulnerable to climate change. This collaboration marks a significant step toward transforming Sri Lanka's coastal and environmental future.
Janashakti Group has been honoured as one of Sri Lanka's most outstanding women-friendly workplaces at the SATYN Women-Friendly Workplace Awards 2025. The recognition highlights JXG's commitment to gender equity, inclusivity and women's well-being throughout its operations. Women comprise 59% of JXG's workforce, significantly higher than the private sector average, with many holding senior management roles. The group promotes a people-first culture with policies supporting equal pay, merit-based promotions and zero tolerance for harassment. JXG also offers flexible work arrangements, childcare support and mental wellness programs to help employees balance work and family life. The Commercial Bank of Ceylon PLC has become the first Sri Lankan bank to surpass a $1 billion market capitalization, marking a significant milestone in its growth.
The Commercial Bank of Ceylon became the first Sri Lankan bank to surpass a US $1 billion market capitalization, celebrated with a ceremonial bell ringing at the Colombo Stock Exchange. The milestone was achieved as the bank's share price rose to Rs 196.75 by August 19, 2025, up from Rs 144.75 at the end of 2024. Chairman Sharhan Mohsin highlighted that crossing this threshold enhances the bank's global market visibility and access to capital. CEO Sanat Manatunga said that the milestone reflects strong investor confidence and the bank's commitment to sustainable value creation. The bank also became the first private sector bank in Sri Lanka to exceed Rs 3 trillion in assets in the second quarter of 2025. Additionally, Commercial Bank was ranked the second most valuable brand in Sri Lanka and is recognized as a leader in digital innovation and environmental sustainability.
Let's take a short commercial break. Global business updates coming on the other side. This is the Nightly Business Report. Welcome back to the Nightly Business Report. Most Asian stocks rose marginally today, with technology shares treading water as investors digested somewhat mixed earnings from artificial intelligence major Nvidia Corp. Japan's Nikkei 225 index rose 0.5%, while the broader topics added 0.4% as tech stocks clocked a somewhat mixed reaction to Nvidia's earnings. South Korea's Kospi rose 0.4% after the Bank of Korea kept interest rates unchanged as expected. Hong Kong's Hang Seng index shed 1%, lagging its regional peers as a batch of weak earnings and weighed on the index. China's Shanghai Shenzhen CSI 300 outperformed its regional peers, rising 1%, while the Shanghai Composite rose 0.4%, with both indexes remaining at multi-year highs. Singapore's Straits Times index rose 0.2%, and India's Nifty 50 index fell 0.8% to a two-week low in morning trade. The S&P 500 notched a record-high close ahead of quarterly results from Nvidia, Wall Street's most closely watched event this week.
U.S. stocks ended higher on Wednesday, with the Dow adding about 0.33%, the S&P 500 gaining roughly 0.25% to close at a record high, and the Nasdaq ticking up about 0.2%. Investors were laser-focused on earnings from Nvidia after the market close, which forecasts third-quarter revenue above Wall Street estimates, helped by robust demand for its artificial intelligence chips from cloud providers. Shares of the chip maker, however, fell in extended trading. Shares of tech and other AI heavyweights were mixed Wednesday, with Microsoft gaining nearly 1% and Meta Platforms dipping almost 1%. Among other movers, MongoDB soared 38% after the software maker raised its annual profit forecast. And shares of J.M. Smucker fell nearly 4.5% after the Jif peanut butter maker missed first-quarter profit estimates.
Qantas shares hit a record high after the airline reported a nearly 16% rise in annual profit, driven by strong domestic travel demand and signaled higher fares ahead.
Qantas shares surged Thursday on news of robust results. The Australian airline said annual profits rose by 15% to $1.6 billion. Chief Executive Vanessa Hudson told reporters that travel demand remained strong. She said corporate flying was almost back to pre-COVID levels. The news sent shares in the company soaring to record highs. They were up over 8% by mid-afternoon. The numbers also suggest that Qantas is on the road to recovery after a tough few years. When Hudson took over in 2023, the airline was facing a blizzard of bad news. Among other crises, it was sued by Australian regulators for selling thousands of tickets for flights that it knew had been cancelled. Qantas was also found to have illegally sacked 1,800 ground staff during the COVID pandemic. Now the company says it expects domestic fares to rise by up to 5% over the first half of the new financial year, with international fares to rise by a little less. However, its results suggest that travellers remain hungry for cheap tickets. While Qantas saw earnings from international flights up 7% over the year, earnings from budget arm Jetstar surged by 55%.
And that wraps up today's Nightly Business Report. We value your opinion as always, so please share your thoughts and feedback with us through email at feedback.ad24english@derana.lk or via WhatsApp at 07680579333. We'll see you again tomorrow with the latest updates across the business globe. And Vinod Marasude will meet you next with other Derana Sports Central. Till then, I'm Anuradhi Vikramasinghe. Thank you very much for watching. Have a good night.